Oh, hello and welcome. So glad you made it. My name is Scott Love, and I'm your host here at Portals Podcast. Today we're picking up where episode one left off of In the Shadows. In episode one, we talked about secret societies going all the way back to the Egyptian era with the mystery cults and how they influenced all of the Mediterranean at that point. In this episode, we're going to be picking up where episode one left off at the fall of the Roman Empire. And we're going to be taking a look at how secret societies helped balance out the tyrannical reign of many monarchs and helped lay the foundation for what would become democracy. Now, if you're brand new to Portals Podcast, I'd like to take a second to let you know that Portals is here to be a go to place so that the people in the community have a place to check out of the mundane and sometimes just flat out vicious media that's going on in the world, and have a place where we can transform into a more positive, inspirational, and um, activating space. In this episode of Portals Podcast, we're going back into the mysterious world of secret societies and taking a look at how influential they've been to just about every aspect of human life. This is part two of a three-part series called In the Shadows, taken from the Emergence Creative Space. In episode one, we went all the way back before the Egyptians and followed the breadcrumbs from the earliest mystery schools all the way up to the fall of the Roman Empire. Today, in episode 2, we are picking up where episode 1 left off, and as we follow along up to the modern era, we will begin to see just how influential these groups have been and how they have created what we now call civilization. Out of the Dark Ages and into the fight for religious freedom, out of tyranny and into the creation of new forms of government, for better or for worse. Also in this episode, we are super excited to introduce two new segments into the Portals Podcast program, a news and information segment and the shout-out segment. Right now, at this exact moment, you are participating in an experiment, a fun and exciting experiment. I have a lot of ideas for what could be included in Portals Podcast, and these 3 In the Shadow episodes are this experiment playing out live before you. It's going to change from episode to episode, and as it grows, we're going to be adding things, taking away things, building up on what worked before. And so you are witnessing its evolution, the emergence of Portals Podcast. So definitely, thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to me. And as this program grows, hopefully you'll pick up some tips and tricks and have a good time. All right. We're about to get into this. I'm excited. Are you excited? But first, here's the thing. You're listening to Portals Podcast, an extension of the Emergence Creative Space. Listeners are transported into the hearts and minds of some of the most inspired creators, producers, artists, and activists around. Portals is a platform and a spotlight on people, organizations, businesses, and more who are the unsung heroes making a huge impact on the lives of others. My name is Scott Love, and I will be your host on this journey into the powerful world of intention and conscious creation. I am an activist, an entrepreneur, and a visionary. Over the years, I've made some incredible relationships with a lot of truly epic people. Many have helped inspire me and have guided me on my journey. I believe they'll help you as well. Here's what's up. We are a people in transition. The choices we make now will affect lives for generations to come. Our choices will be our legacy. I want Portals Podcast to be a go-to resource for those who are searching for solutions and to help us move us all forward. Thanks for being here. All right, let's get inspired. There you go. There you go. That's the spot. Oh, that's so good. Thank you. Now, if you could just hit that like button, that'd be awesome. Oh, you're back. Okay, so before we get into the shadows, I wanted to take a minute to introduce you to a brand new segment to Portal's podcast called Four Good Things. Now, Four Good Things is a collection of news stories that I've put together in hopes of inspiring and activating something in the hearts and minds of the listeners. So, without further ado, let's get into Four Good Things. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, I'm happy to share with you now 4 inspirational news stories. 4 Good Things is a new segment for Portal's podcast. I wanted to make sure that in a world where our feeds are polluted with mind-numbing, vibe-destroying news stories, we have a place we can go to check out some good news. Hopefully these stories will brighten your day, maybe even get you excited about things. So without further delay, I present to you the first of 4 good things. It's an amazing time to be an independent entrepreneur. Based on the number of small business loan applicants, a record-setting 5.5 million new small businesses were started in the United States in 2023. That's up 500,000 from 2022. This most recent increase is exciting because it demonstrates that people today, more than ever, are feeling that it's their time to become independent and are finding ways to sustain themselves and their family. Taking a leap into business ownership is scary, and many times it requires learning a whole new set of skills. But the end result is that they are, in most cases, finding career paths that are more closely reflective of their passions and their values. Silver linings come in all shapes and sizes, and this could be considered a silver lining to the COVID-19 pandemic. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce mentions that the pandemic created circumstances for new businesses to start, citing that the change made individuals turn their ideas and hobbies into businesses that they could run from home. And to me, that's one of the most beautiful aspects of life, finding solutions. In essence, we are a solutions-oriented species at our core. Stephen Davis, an economist at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, said that people are looking for working arrangements that are more suitable for how they want to live their lives. He said this during a 2022 roundtable event, which was hosted by the Economic Innovation Group. What's really exciting is that more and more women and minorities are stepping into small business ownership roles, as seen by the fact that 49% of new business owners are women. The Small Business Administration is committed to increasing small dollar loan funding, and in 2023 delivered nearly $90 million in microloans. A microloan is a loan of $50,000 or less, with 35% of those loans going to Black-owned businesses and 15% going to Latino-owned businesses. It seems that the pandemic acted as a wake-up call for many people who are now choosing to step away from corporate America, but it's more than that. Many people are looking to earn more income while maintaining their current careers. That trend is also on the rise. The Associated Press reported that 44% of new business owners claim that their new businesses are side hustles. This is also up from 27% in 2022. This is partially due to the fact that there are all kinds of new internet-based business models to choose from. Here are a few interesting facts about small businesses. Did you know that 99% of American businesses are small businesses? I checked it 2 times, so that's accurate, with 33.3 million businesses in the United States as of 2024. Or did you know that small businesses employ 61.7 million people, which is 46% of the entire private sector? Here's some more for you. Small businesses are the main source of employment in many industries, with 82% of construction workers, 83% of agriculture workers, and 44% of healthcare workers employed by small businesses. Small businesses also generate 32.6% of all exports and pay 39% of all private sector payroll. If you'd like to find out more information on how to start a small business, or if you would like a free guided tour on how you can become an entrepreneur, look up the SCORE program from the Small Business Administration. That's SCORE. They have helped millions of people wrap their heads around all the things you need to do to become an entrepreneur, and it's as easy as following instructions. I know firsthand that that's true. I used their models and their forums to get a better understanding as to all the things I needed to do to create the Emergence Theater as a non-profit. So, do you dream of starting a new business? And if you were to open up a small business, what kind of business would it be? What's keeping you from doing it? Does it seem too daunting, like too much to take on? That's understandable. But if these numbers say anything, it's that it's probably not nearly as difficult as we may think it is. Number 2 of 4 good things: alternatives to lithium-ion batteries. As humanity slowly makes the global shift towards sustainable solutions in the area of energy generation and consumption, one of the most important technological advancements has come in the area of energy storage. We can generate all the energy we could ever need through any number of alternative means. With all the advancements in energy collection, the main issue hasn't been on the supply side. It's that we are limited in how we can store the energy. At this point, excess energy generated is pretty much useless unless it can be stored for later use. Energy storage devices, or batteries, as they are called by the cool kids these days, has come a long way in what really has been a short period of time. Now, I'm not going to get into the full extensive history of batteries, but they were first invented around 1800 and then modernized in a considerable way about 100 years later, 90 to 100 years. And then about 30 years after that, so 1930, they started taking on incredible new faces. And it's a really interesting story. I suggest you look into it. Lithium-ion batteries are the most prevalent type of batteries used today. They are used in many portable consumer electronics, such as cell phones, laptops, medical equipment, and power tools as well. They have a high energy density, a long life cycle, and a low self-discharge rate, making them ideal for applications requiring lightweight and high-performance power sources. But, unfortunately, lithium-ion batteries come with their fair share of issues, some of which are serious causes for alarm, safety being one of them. Lithium is highly reactive and flammable metal. These batteries have a tendency to catch fire or even explode due to a chain reaction known as thermal runaway. Scarcity. Lithium is the key component of lithium-ion batteries, but we only have a limited amount of lithium on the planet. Lithium reserves are located far from manufacturing centers, and sadly, many of the parts that make up the lithium-ion battery are found in areas of the world with horrible histories of human rights abuses. Sustainability. They require environmentally destructive mining practices for metals such as lithium, cobalt, and nickel. A large amount of these metal resources are located in developing countries like Dominican Republic of Congo, where ethical mining practices haven't been established. Durability. You may already know that batteries degrade over time. Various chemical and physical stresses reduce the amount of lithium ions in such batteries and reduce their ability to hold storage. So it's important that we find a cheaper, longer lasting, and more sustainable way to store the energy that we need to continue to push forward on our march towards shedding our addiction to fossil fuels. Here's a few of a long list. Number 1, sodium-ion batteries. Now, these are really exciting. You can do any search on YouTube, hear all sorts of ways that this technology is progressing. They simply replace lithium ions as charge carriers with sodium. This single change has big impact on the battery production, as sodium is far more abundant than lithium. In fact, you can use salt from the oceans to extract sodium just about anywhere in the world. Another is lithium-sodium-ion hybrid. And finally, solid-state batteries. Not all of the areas of interest in this hunt are newer technologies. Besides the lower risk of ignition, solid-state batteries can also hold more energy compared to their lithium-ion counterparts. They also charge and release energy quicker, which is much more safe. It's exciting to take a closer look at some of the current technological advancements in our pursuit of becoming a more mindful and sustainable global community. It supports the notion that we, the people here on this planet, are turning a corner and truly becoming a more conscious, or thoughtful, if you will, species. Number 3 of 4 good things. New studies clearly show the benefit of telemental health for specific segments of population. If you're like me, then you've most likely seen ads for telemental health services like BetterHelp. I remember when I first started seeing those ads, thinking that it seemed a little strange. I have a bit of resistance to some kinds of technology. But if I'm being honest here, and to put this into perspective, I didn't even get a smartphone until years after they were first introduced. And once I did have one, I didn't ever use it for GPS mapping, because I was certain it would destroy my sense of direction, that I would somehow become dependent on it and not know how to get around without it. So I couldn't get away from the feeling that it was just another step away from the personal human interaction. I felt that a part of the current mental health crisis came from not interacting with enough people in our day to day. From this point forward, so I don't have to keep saying the words telemental health 1,000 times in this script, I'm going to abbreviate it to TMH. To clarify, TMH refers to a form of mental health care that is accessible through means such as text messaging and chat functions, but most commonly refers to telephone calls and video calls, which are central to telemental health care, or TMH care. Recently, though, I've come across information that has opened my eyes to the benefits of TMH. Positive outcomes and experiences have been recorded across a range of populations and settings. Encouraging evidence on the accessibility and effectiveness from pre-pandemic research shows how even before the pandemic, TMH was reaching more people and thus the benefits were starting to be recorded. But it was during the COVID-19 pandemic that the use of telemental health around the world greatly accelerated, and the TMH healthcare became a routine approach to maintaining and delivering mental health services. Telemental health initiatives were worked into the budget and were central to delivering mental health services in that time of crisis. There's no telling just how much of an impact TMH had during this time, but polls and charts seem to indicate that for a good number of people who were isolated and going through mental health crises, it literally saved lives. Some evidence has suggested that TMH modalities, such as video conferencing, are equivalent to or better than face-to-face modalities for some service users in terms of quality of care, reliability of clinical assessments, and adherence to their treatment plans. High levels of acceptance and satisfaction with TMH services have also been reported in certain populations, including those with physical mobility issues, social anxiety, or severe anxiety disorders. This news inspires celebration by many dedicated caregivers because the end result is that TMH has helped more and more users have positive treatment outcomes. For many, seeking mental health care can feel daunting, particularly to those with transportation issues or work schedules or have mobility challenges. Even childcare concern can be a roadblock for some. This removes the hurdles, allowing you to connect with licensed therapists virtually, be it through video chat, phone calls, or secure messaging platforms. This flexibility empowers you to prioritize your well-being, regardless of external circumstances, but the benefits go beyond convenience. The technology itself can also be a powerful tool. Therapists can utilize online resources, interactive exercises, and even mindfulness apps to enhance your sessions. Once again, mental health care is not a one-size-fits-all situation, and TMH is not a replacement for traditional in-person therapy, but it's a powerful complement. It's a lifeline to those who might otherwise struggle to access care. It's a space where the stigma surrounding mental health care can fade and be replaced by empowerment and self-care. So, if you've been considering prioritizing your mental wellness, embrace the possibilities of TMH. It's a chance to take control of your journey. Remember, Seeking help is a sign of strength, and with telemental health bridging the gap, the path to a healthier you is now more accessible than ever. It's amazing to think that this is just one more example of how humanity can adapt and adjust to incredible situations, such as the pandemic. It reminds us that we continue to grow and progress, even in the most dire of situations. And actually, these moments tend to be the space where our most important advancements are made. Now, you may be wondering, same thing I was wondering, do telemental health organizations accept insurance? And the answer is, some do, some don't. Look into it, and I'm sure you'll find one that matches your needs. Thank you so much for listening, and this concludes part 3 of 4 Good Things. Number 4. Land banks, transforming communities one vacant lot at a time. Land banks might not sound exciting, but they're quietly becoming superstars in community development. Land banks are public or nonprofit entities that tackle a big problem: vacant land, abandoned land, and blighted properties. Often eyesores, these properties drag down entire neighborhoods, decreasing property value and increasing crime. Here's where land banks swoop in, like a superhero with a toolbox. They acquire these properties, often through tax foreclosure, and then the magic happens. Instead of simply reselling them, land banks act as stewards. They clean up the properties, address safety hazards, and sometimes even demolish structures that are beyond repair. This immediate facelift makes a big difference in the neighborhoods. But land banks don't stop there. They work with communities to figure out the best use of each property. Maybe it becomes a park, a community garden, or even a spot for much-needed affordable housing. Land banks often prioritize responsible buyers committed to revitalization and not just a quick buck. The benefits are undeniable. Increased property values? Check. Safer neighborhoods? Absolutely. A renewed sense of community pride? Indeed. Land banks are like dominoes. A positive change in one property can ripple outwards, sparking a wave of improvement. Think beyond aesthetics. Land banks can be economic engines too. They create jobs through renovation and restoration. Plus, they generate tax revenue that can be reinvested in the community. While the specifics can vary by location, here's a general roadmap for buying a house from a land bank. Research and find your ideal property. Look for your local land bank's website. Many have searchable databases of available properties. Get financially ready. Land bank houses are often priced affordably, but they usually require significant rehab. Secure financing for both purchase and renovation. Okay, then you apply and develop your plan. Fill out the land bank's application and outline your renovation plan. This typically includes details on the work that is needed, estimated costs, and a timeline for achieving your goals. Be prepared to demonstrate your ability to complete the project financially. Wait for approval. The land bank will review your application and plan. This can take time, so be patient. And when once approved, you finalize the purchase agreement and secure the property. Renovate and revitalize. With the land bank's blessing, it's time to roll up your sleeves and bring your renovation plans to life. All right, and I think that just about does it for this installment of 4 Good Things. If you have any suggestions or recommendations on topics we should cover, please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. You can find us at emergencecreative.space/contact, and we'll let you know if we cover that topic. Well, that was Four Good Things. Really excited about Four Good Things. That particular segment took me about a week to build. Like I said, I've never done this before, so this is all an experiment, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. All right. And so now we're going to get to the second of three in the Shadow episodes. This one is called The Oath and the Rise of Destiny. So let's head over to the Emergence Creative Space site now and pull up this article. All right. And action. Very good. All right. All right, here we are. We're on the Emergence Creative Space website. I've already pulled up the page. You can go to emergencecreative.space and look underneath the magazine, and you'll see this article. Uh, Into the Shadows, Part 2, The Oath, and here we go. Back in Part 1 of In the Shadows, we took a look at how the earliest whispers of secret societies can be traced back to the dawn of civilization. In ancient Egypt, the priesthood guarded the mysteries of the afterlife and the secrets of the cosmos, passing them down through generations of initiates. In Greece, the Eleusinian mysteries promised enlightenment and spiritual rebirth to those who underwent their sacred rituals. These early societies laid the foundation for future generations, emphasizing exclusivity, ritual, and a pursuit of knowledge beyond the reach of the common man. As civilization blossomed, so did the diversity of secret societies. Medieval guilds and brotherhoods. With the end of the Dark Ages came tremendous change, both socially and politically, around the world. The time between the fall of the Roman Empire and the beginning of the Italian Renaissance was a very interesting time in human advancement. The world was buzzing with a new zeal of discovery, opening up a time for concentrated studies and experimentations in the arts and sciences, which in turn led to many advancements in all areas of life. Specialized skilled trades were the order of the day, and these skilled people band together to form guilds, protecting their trade secrets and safeguarding their economic interests. Artisans and merchants created networks along trading routes, build relationships with patrons, those who would solicit their services, and in many cases would find themselves privy to knowledge and insights in all aspects of society. Soon, a method of collecting, organizing, and distributing important information was developed. As a member of a guild, you could participate in important conversations, hold positions in governance, and help make decisions for the betterment of society. Being a member of a guild meant that you had a voice at the table. These groups also guarded trade secrets and fostered a sense of community amongst their members. This means that much of the governing was done by committee and by an elite group behind closed doors, with the final decision being laid down by the king or heads of state. Regents were put in place to help govern the general population of the land. These regents were a direct connection between the people and the leadership. Regents also had trusted advisors, most often specialists or people in positions of influence that could help them best serve the higher ups. Very often, the regents were the most influential and connected leaders of the above mentioned guilds. It isn't surprising, then, that we can now clearly see how the previous model for secret societies was studied, passed down, and adapted to the current age and needs of the group, guild, or committee. As society entered the Age of Enlightenment, many guilds merged to form new, stronger, and more influential groups, and created schools where they could pass on their knowledge to the next wave of skilled practitioners, or initiates. God has something to say about it. The power of the priesthood was as strong as ever, and while the names of the gods and the saviors may have changed, the hold they had on the hearts and imaginations of the people of the time was enough to inspire the most horrific and treacherous behavior. Many times, the very knowledge that was important to one king or emperor, for whatever reason, could very well be seen as a crime, punishable by death, or many fates worse than death, by others, namely the church. The church and the state were in a constant dance for domination and control. In some cases, they were allies, and other times sworn enemies. Along with this, in both the church and the state, There were layers upon layers of secret orders, hidden agendas, conspiracies. As the power of the church, in this case the Roman Catholic Church, grew to near world domination, anyone who spoke anything counter to what was deemed acceptable and appropriate in the eyes of the priesthood was considered heresy. Heresy was having a belief or theory that was strongly at variance or odds with established beliefs and customs, particularly the accepted beliefs or religious laws of a religious organization. The thing is, beliefs and customs were in a constant state of change, much like they are in today's world, and the decision to change them could very well be whimsical, at best, and often vengeful and manipulative at worst. You didn't want to be known as a heretic, trust me. Many a heretic faced unimaginable demise. Yet, another reason to keep your thoughts and your ideas and knowledge hidden. The Zealots. Brotherhoods like the Knights Templar rose to power as servants to the courts or the church, in some cases both. As the story goes, Frenchman Hugues de Payens, in the year 1118, founded the Knights Templar with the mission of protecting Christian pilgrims on their way to and from the Holy Land during the Crusades against the Muslims. For a while, the Templars had only 9 members, mostly due to their rigid rules. Knights were required to take strict vows of poverty, obedience, and chastity. But by the time the Crusades came to a devastating end, the Knights Templar acquired considerable wealth, and this was the cause for concern and jealousy from both the church and secular leadership. So, in 1307, King Philip IV of France and Pope Clement V plotted to arrest the Grand Master of the Templars, Jacques de Molay, on charges of heresy, sacrilege, and Satanism. Molay and other leading Templars confessed, but only after excruciatingly painful torture. Their ends were just as brutal, as they were burned alive at the stake. Pope Clement dissolved the Templars in 1312. Since then, the myths and legends about the Templars have grown. One held belief is that they discovered holy relics at the Temple Mount, including the Holy Grail, bodies of giants, the Ark of the Covenant, and parts of the cross of Christ's crucifixion. It was with the combination of religious devotion, martial prowess, elevated legal status, and the blessing of God through the church that the Knights Templars rose to become incredibly powerful and influential. Before their apparent demise, the mysterious rituals and strict codes of conduct quickly elevated them to high regard by both the citizens and the leaders of the land. Their oath, they were sworn to hold secure the secret teaching and preserve the spiritual relics of the ancient past. And so the Pope killed them all. The story of the Knights Templar definitely deserve a whole article specifically to them. If you'd like me to write one, let me know. Moving on. The Renaissance, an era of intellectual rediscovery, witnessed the rise of several humanist societies like the Florentine Academy, created to support the advancement of society with flourishing intellectual and artistic pursuits. The Florentine Academy, also known as the Platonic Academy of Florence, was an informal discussion group that formed around Marsilio Ficino in the 15th century. Ficino was a Florentine philosopher, translator, and commentator who was largely responsible for the revival of Plato and Platonicism in the Renaissance. Ficino taught briefly at the Florentine Studio, or university, and also instructed youths at the Camaldolese convent. He was tasked with producing the first complete Latin translation of Plato's dialogues, and in 1496 he published an edition of his collected Plato commentaries. The Platonic Academy shaped the literary and artistic culture in Florence in the later Renaissance, and influenced science, religion, art, and literature throughout Europe in the early modern period. Groups like the Florentine Academy were in direct lineage to the guilds mentioned earlier. In many of the early republics, they were the voting and governing class of society. They had knowledge of available resources and could influence where those resources would go. What I wouldn't give to have listened to the conversations that took place at the Academy, where the quest of finding the true, deeper meanings of life and death were discussed and theorized by some of the greatest minds of that or any other era in time. Some of the deeper and mystifying topics were openly discussed, such as what is God? What is our relationship with God? How does it express itself to us and us to it? Are there meanings behind the seeming coincidences of mathematics in the natural world? Why does red and blue make purple? And who does number two really work for? Unfortunately, as seems to be quite often the case throughout history, some of these questions were just not acceptable questions to ask because the church already had decided what the answers were. To say anything to the contrary would run the risk of being labeled a heretic. Many of the studies and writings of this time had to be published in secret, with many turning to the use of symbology and coded artifice in the arts, out of fear of the influence of the church. Many artists, scientists, and teachers were forced to go into exile or renounce their beliefs. Leonardo da Vinci is one such artist. In the first edition of the Lives of Artists, published in Florence in 1550, the artist and critic Giorgio Vasari claimed that Leonardo da Vinci was a heretic who did not believe in God. Thus was the fate of many a brilliant intellectual minds. Either adhere to the rigid supernatural doctrine of the religious orders, or face ridicule, be labeled a heretic, be tortured, and die. The Rosicrucian surge and influence, America and Europe. Getting out from under the death grip of tyrannical leadership of the church and the monarchy have been one of the prime motivators in the creation of secret societies going all the way back throughout history. The Rosicrucians, with their strange academic symbols and obscure texts, sought to unite art, science, and spirituality. Take a look at some of the more famous Rosicrucians from over the years. You'll undoubtedly immediately recognize the role they've played in society and the lasting impact they've made on the world as a whole. This list includes Isaac Newton, Blaise Pascal, Thomas Paine, Dante, Giordano Bruno, Rene Descartes, Abraham Lincoln, Benjamin Franklin, Leonardo da Vinci, George Washington, Napoleon Bonaparte, William Lloyd Garrison, Edith Piaf, Walt Disney, and Victor Hugo. Whew. It's a long list, and it goes much beyond that. There are thousands and thousands of members over the years, many of which we'll never know the names of. You didn't know they were Rosicrucians. It's because you weren't supposed to know. Rosicrucians were connected to many other orders and organizations, such as Freemasons, which we'll talk about more in a minute. Many of the ideas presented in the Constitution of the United States and its Bill of Rights stem from this time in history, and were, generally, created as a reaction to the chokehold held by European heads of state and the church. With all this in mind, it's easy to see how the promise of creating something new in the Americas seems so alluring. Enough so that thousands of people crossed the Atlantic Ocean in hopes of getting out from under the grips of the church and the state. The Freemasons. Enter the Freemasons. Nationally recognized Freemasonry began in the 1700s with the founding of the Grand Lodge in 1717. However, Freemason societies have existed for much longer. The most popular theory is that Freemasonry emerged out of the stonemasonry guilds of the Middle Ages. Freemasonry reached around the world, focusing mainly on Europe and into the Middle East, and eventually landing on the shores of what would be the United States, in direct opposition to what they faced in their homelands. Many Freemasons saw the creation of the United States as their chance to create their ideal place to put into practice their ideals and beliefs. It is well known that many of the founding fathers of the United States, the authors of the Democratic Constitution, were indeed Order of the Freemason members, with at least 9, but possibly as many as 22 of the signers of the Declaration of Independence being Freemasons, out of 55 signatures in all. The lasting influence of the Freemasons can be found in everything from art to finance to civic and social organizations. It can even be found on the currency of the United States. There are endless resources out there if you'd like to know more about the Freemasons. Viva la Révolution. The Carbonari symbol shares a few characteristics with the Freemason symbol and the groups associated with it. They share many beliefs and fought to oppose oppression and usher in a new era of political and religious freedoms. Actually, the organization known as the Carbonari, or the Charcoal Burners, was not really an organized central union in the way that the Freemasons were. They were more like an informal network of smaller groups, active in Italy from about 1800 to about 1831. And while the Italian Carbonari may not have lasted all that long, They indeed played a major role in inspiring other revolutionary groups like those in France, Portugal, Spain, Brazil, Uruguay, and what was the Ottoman Empire and Russia, all to a great mix of outcomes and results. Not all were as successful as the great American experiment of the Freemasons and the Rosicrucian orders. While the goals of the Carbonari movement often had patriotic and liberal basis, they lacked clear, immediate political agenda. They were a focus for those unhappy with the repressive political situation in Italy following 1815, especially in the south of the Italian peninsula. Members of the Carbonari and those influenced by them took part in important events in the process of Italian unification, especially the failed revolution of 1820 and the further development of Italian nationalism. The chief purpose was to defeat tyranny and establish a constitutional government. Other groups, such as Adelphia and Philadelphia, were associate organizations, and while their efforts may not have created the immediate results they'd hoped for in time, the ideas and influence won out, and this is no small part to the examples they provided the rest of the world. The revolutions in other parts of the world, with Russia as an example, didn't fare so well. The Bolshevik Revolution, also known as the Great October Socialist Revolution, was a communist revolution that took place in Russia in 1917. The revolution was led by Vladimir Lenin, the founder of the Russian Communist Party, leading to the imprisonment and deaths of tens of millions of people. This failed attempt, while most likely based on a desire for better lives and for a more fair experience for all, ended up being one of the most bleak periods in history. Not only for the people of Russia, but for much of the world, and it's still reverberating today. And we're going to wrap this up with the Fenians. The word Fenian serves as an umbrella term for the Irish Republic Brotherhood and their affiliates in the United States, the Fenian Brotherhood. They were a secret political organization in the 19th and early 20th century dedicated to the establishment of an independent Irish republic. The word Fenian conjures up powerful images of dynamic plots, clandestine meetings, and secret cells inching towards revolution in Ireland from both sides of the Atlantic. The goal, or ideal outcome, being an Irish democratic republic, and it called for the complete separation of church and state. The Irish Fenians sought independence from British control. I mean, who didn't? For this, they gained the ire of the Catholic Church in Ireland. In short, there was such hostility and animosity between the church and the Fenians that the leadership of the church saw them as direct enemies of God. The story of the Irish Revolution is a long and bloody, sordid tale, which eventually does see Irish independence. It is one that is played out all over the world as peoples rose up from oppression and manipulation, and believe it or not, it's still happening today. Where, you might ask? How about everywhere? At this very moment, there are secret meetings being held, important decisions being made, and they are not being made by those you think are the decision makers. In fact, just to let you know, those so-called decision makers only think they're the real decision makers. The real decision makers are, well, we'll touch more on this in the next and final chapter in this three-part series, In the Shadows. Well, there you go. That was pretty fun, wasn't it? Part 2 of In the Shadows. Part 3 will be releasing the next couple of weeks. Part 1 you can find anywhere that you listen to your podcast, whether it's Spotify or whether it's YouTube. Just type in Portals Podcast, and you should be able to find it pretty simply. We're using these first 3 In the Shadows episodes as our experiment, as our playground, as our laboratory, if you will. The first one, I was exploring the use of OBS and Audacity. In this one, I leaned into DaVinci Resolve, and that's a video editing suite. And then this next one, I have a couple other streaming elements that I'm going to be implementing to see if I can get this all going smoother and faster. Where it won't be every 2 to 3 weeks that I'm releasing episodes. But like I said, this is an experiment. The goal is to get to the point where I can pump it out, once a week. And yeah, that's awesome. Hey, if you want to support what we're doing, like I said, you can start by liking and subscribing, or you can go to emergencecreative.space and sign up there, either for our newsletter or becoming a member. There are all sorts of awesome perks. I'm not going to get into them right now. Will be a bit more of that in the next episode. All right. Much love to you. Thank you so much, and let's get inspired. You're listening to Portals Podcast, an extension of the Emergence Creative Space. Listeners are transported into the hearts and minds of some of the most inspired creators, producers, artists, and activists around. Portals is a platform and a spotlight on people, organizations, businesses, and more who are the unsung heroes making a huge impact on the lives of others. My name is Scott Love, and I will be your host on this journey into the powerful world of intention and conscious creation. I am an activist, an entrepreneur, and a visionary. Over the years, I've made some incredible relationships with a lot of truly epic people. Many have helped inspire me and have guided me on my journey. I believe they'll help you as well. Here's what's up. We are a people in transition. The choices we make now will affect lives for generations to come. Our choices will be our legacy. I want Portals Podcast to be a go-to resource for those who are searching for solutions and to help us move us all forward. Thanks for being here. All right, let's get inspired.